Firefighters in Southern California continue to battle at least 3 wildfires burning out of control. The largest, the Thomas Fire, began Monday night and exploded in Ventura County, destroying hundreds of homes and thousands of acres. Tens of thousands of people in the region have been forced to evacuate. President Donald Trump is expected to declare Jerusalem as Israel's capital this afternoon. He also plans to begin the process of moving the American embassy from Tel Aviv to the Holy City. Here's a live look at the Western Wall right now. Hinadoba has the latest on why the move could have deep repercussions across the Middle East.
Palestinian protesters gathered in Bethlehem last night, voicing their anger at President Donald Trump's move to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
We will not accept to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the Palestinian capital.
Both Palestinians and Israelis have long considered Jerusalem their capital, a sacred city that plays a major role in Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Among the moves expected today at the White House, the president will also direct the State Department to begin the multi-year process of moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, a pledge he made on the campaign trail in 2016.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas warned President Trump there would be grave consequences, and critics say the move will derail peace talks.
Changing the status of Jerusalem from the U.S. would be reneging on a promise and a stab in the back of the peace process.
A former Israeli foreign policy official called the Palestinians delusional.
Driving a carving knife across and through and meandering across a living city would be a mistake.
The American consulate has already issued warnings to U.S. personnel and American tourists from going to the Old City or the West Bank, while the State Department is urging embassies around the world to tighten their security. Hinadoba, CBS News.
In court news, as the murder trial against a Busby man accused of beating and burning a woman alive continues, there's conflicting testimony in the courtroom. Co-defendants Angelica Whiteman and Frank Sanchez both testified against the defendant, and they each told their own version of events that happened the night Royland Wright's horse was attacked. Whiteman and Sanchez both claimed they tried to stop the assault, blaming each other and DeMarcio Sanchez. Whiteman says she was ordering a drink at the Kirby Saloon when she encountered Wright's horse, who was crying about a fight with her husband. Whiteman testified she hugged Wright's horse and told her she could take her home. Outside, the woman met with the Sanchez brothers and the others in the vehicle. Frank Sanchez testified he told Wright's horse not to worry and that she was with good people. But on the journey to the Crow Agency, an apparent dirty look given by the victim started a fight with Whiteman. Soon thereafter, the victim was beaten, strangled, and burned alive in a field. Also giving testimony on Tuesday, the physician who treated Wright's horse. He appeared shaken as he spoke about her injuries and said he couldn't tell whether the victim was a male or female. Meanwhile, a Billings man now admits he was driving under the influence of marijuana when he caused a fatal crash last year. 20-year-old Kent Jensen pleaded guilty in Yellowstone County District Court on Monday to a charge of vehicular homicide while under the influence. Jensen was the driver of a vehicle that crashed into 31-year-old Joshua Fry on South Frontage Road. Fry, who was riding his motorcycle, was thrown from the bike and killed. Jensen submitted to a blood test, and his level of THC was more than 3 times the level considered intoxicated. Prosecutors will recommend a sentence of 20 years at the Montana State Prison. A sentencing date has not yet been set. Now we go to Colstrip, where the community will get up to $10 million for community planning purposes as Puget Sound Energy moves ahead to decommission Colstrip Power Plants 1 and 2. That $10 million is part of a settlement agreement approved unanimously Tuesday by the Washington State Utilities and Transportation Commission. The settlement, first reached in September, establishes a financing mechanism for the utility to shut down the 2 oldest power plants no later than 2022. While the settlement does not set a shutdown date for units 3 and 4, it speeds up the time frame that Puget Sound Energy can recover the costs for those units by almost 20 years, from 2045 to the year 2027. As for the $10 million for community planning purposes, $5 million of that will be paid by Puget Sound. The other $5 million will come from the company's shareholders. The agreement calls on PSC to help develop a transition plan for the Colstrip community to help mitigate the impacts of closing the plants. Puget Sound will also hold workshops to review the future of the transmission lines that currently carry Colstrip's electrical load. Puget Sound Energy, based in Bellevue, Washington, provides electricity to more than 1 million electric customers in 8 Washington counties. The company owns half of Colstrip Power Plants 1 and 2 and is part owner with 5 other utilities in Colstrip Units 3 and 4. Elsewhere, Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke is recommending that the Badger 2 Medicine area in northwest Montana be given protection as a national monument. That announcement comes as Zinke defends the Trump administration's move to shrink the size of 2 national monuments in Utah. Zinke is now recommending the Badger 2 Medicine area along Montana's Rocky Mountain front be protected from development. That area, immediately south of Glacier National Park, has long been considered sacred for its cultural value to the Blackfeet tribe. Now from the campus, a University of Montana professor is calling on the school to provide public records and documents involving more than 9 budget cut meetings as the university considers major program cuts. They're raising questions about the minutes that were not made available from the university task force that reviewed all 415 programs at in the span of a week. With so many programs to review in such a short time frame, Professor Mehrdad Kia is concerned about the overall process. Kia is seeking documents to identify the anonymous reviewers who rated the 415 programs from strong to not suitable, adding if doesn't provide those records, then the program recommendations are invalid.
It hasn't been made public, and if it is not available, then we think that there may be illegality with respect to either open meetings or public participation or the right to know. And if there is, then these recommendations are void.
There is a reference to meetings that took place even in the provost office itself, for which there is no content, there is no substance. We want to know what happened in these meetings. We want to know what transpired, what was discussed, who voted.
Montana law says a person may request and make copies of public records from a public agency, and Kia says definitely falls under those guidelines. Back here in Billings, the color blue represents peace, and it's used to honor law enforcement killed in the line of duty. For the 8th year, a tree at the Yellowstone County Courthouse is decorated with names of fallen officers and deputies. This year, Montana lost one of its own, Broadwater County Deputy Sheriff Mason Moore, who was gunned down back in May. Project Blue Light now burns bright in the hearts of nearly 32,000 survivors of America's fallen law enforcement officers during this holiday season.
I want them to remember how significant our law enforcement is in this community, and to remember those that made the ultimate sacrifice. Plus, the color blue is a sign of peace, and so we want to hope that in the coming year that we'll have more peace.
Surviving family members will be invited to take part in National Police Week in Washington, D.C. in May. You too can participate by placing a single blue light in your window in memory of fallen officers.